The Calgary Police Service is investigating several reports of graffiti on a number of South Calgary schools and a synagogue. Some of these incidents are being investigated as hate crimes. Officers received a report that on Monday, April the 21st, 2014, just after midnight, a swastika was painted on the rear door of a Jewish synagogue in the 500 block of Woodpark Blvd southwest. It is believed that 3 suspects were involved in this incident, each described as around 5'10" tall, weighing 140 to 150 pounds. It was also reported that a swastika was painted on a nearby school. The CPS is investigating several other incidents of graffiti vandalism to schools, which happened sometime between the evening of Thursday, April the 24th, and the early morning of Friday the 25th of April 2014. The following incidents were reported on the same day. Graffiti, including swastikas, vulgar drawings and language, was spray painted on a school in the 200 block of Parkland Way southeast. Swastikas, abusive words were painted on a school in the 1700 block of Arcadia Drive southeast. Words and vulgar sayings were painted on a school in the 700 block of Mapleton Drive southeast. A school in the 1300 block of Parkside Drive southeast was painted with various inappropriate words and images. The same school was vandalized 2 other times in previous weeks. All of these incidents are being investigated by District 8 officers, as well as CPS Hate Crimes Coordinator and the CPS Graffiti Coordinator, and the Joint Graffiti Investigative Team. All the reported graffiti has been removed. Officers investigating whether these incidents are related. The Joint Graffiti Investigative Team, a multi-agency group of officers from Calgary Police Service, the City of Calgary Animal and Bylaw Services, and Calgary Transit Public Safety and Enforcement, that focuses on investigating graffiti vandalism and graffiti offenders in Calgary. If you see vandalism in progress, call 911. Report graffiti that already exists by calling 311. If you have information on individuals causing damage to property, please contact Police Crime Stoppers anonymously. For more information on graffiti in our city, visit graffitifreecalgary.ca.
There's got to be some challenges in tracking down who's done these things. I mean, unlike kind of maybe other graffiti where somebody has like a style or there's a tag or something that you can kind of track who's done what. This seems to be a little more, I don't know how you say it, but maybe a little harder to pin to an individual. If you catch them with painting one swastika, it's hard to point him back to necessarily the others. Is that?
Well, these incidents we're treating as possibly related because of the type of graffiti in all the premises that have been attacked. It's of similar nature.
And time frame is the well.
And a certain amount of time frame is correct.
Just because it wasn't clear from the release, were swastikas painted on all the buildings?
Not all, but the majority.
The description of the suspects you have, is that due to video surveillance in the areas, or how did you get a description of the suspects?
We were lucky enough to obtain some CCTV footage, and we're reviewing that as we speak, with the general descriptions that have come from the CCTV.
Is that what also led you to say just after midnight that you knew it was the time frame?
This is correct, yes.
Is there any photos of the surveillance that can be shared with the media? Or?
Not at this time. We're currently reviewing it.
In terms of the hate crime, and that might be a question better for hate crimes guy, but what is the test to make it investigated? Is it just simply enough as drawing a swastika, or?
Well, I think in answer to your question, the type of graffiti by way of swastika, which everybody, I believe, is aware of what it means and where it comes from, and where it's been targeted on the premises, that would deliver us it to being a hate crime.
swastikas are generally, sorry. I guess that the answer is correct. That swastika is generally understood for people. They know what that means. The fact that it was on schools and certainly on a synagogue would lead us to consider these hate crimes and to be investigated as such.
So just to kind of to clarify that a little bit, so it's I mean, as offensive as it may be, it's not just the swastika, it's also the where it's located that would cross the threshold from simply being offensive graffiti to being a hate crime.
Certainly in relation to the synagogue, for sure. The fact that it was painted on a synagogue or a place of religious worship makes it a hate crime. The fact that there are schools as well, and kids have seen this, the audience, the targeting, the fact of the symbol, those all play a fact into it as well.
Just to clarify, what's the difference between investigating graffiti versus a hate crime? What are how much does that raise the ante in terms of charges?
Well, there can be different charging sections which can be become a little bit more complicated. But in terms of a mischief, when it is investigated as a hate crime because of the symbols that were used, the location of where it is done, then an offender or a person who has committed that offense, the fact that the symbols are of potentially a hate-motivated nature would increase, upon sentencing, would increase the sentence given to an offender because of what it is, and that would raise the level of the seriousness of the offense. Certainly also raises the way that the community would perceive this, right? How certain images on certain buildings are going to have a greater effect on the consciousness of the community because of what it is, as opposed to just some other kind of random symbol or act.
As opposed to just being something that's disgusting or offensive.
Right.
It actually
Means something.
creates victims. It means something to people.
That's right. Absolutely.
And is there a higher bar or a bigger challenge to prove that it's a hate crime versus the vandalism, mischief? A higher bar to be set?
Well, I don't know if you consider it a higher bar. It would just be something that would be a part of the investigation, right? It would be a part of finding out, we know what it is, and then once during the investigation, finding out who's done it. There's a lot of things that would make a difference in terms of the investigation. So I wouldn't call it a higher bar as much as it's just an aspect of the occurrence that you take into consideration because of what it is.
Were some of the sayings also what made it a hate crime? Like some of the sayings that were painted on public schools buildings?
You'd have to answer. I don't know what was said.
The sayings that appeared on the buildings were just of a graphic, insulting, abusive nature. So no, in answer to your question.
So specifically the symbol of the swastika, that's a hate crime?
Absolutely, as refer to the answer we gave moments ago, the swastika being on the religious establishment, and that being a synagogue of that. Everybody knows what the swastika means, and obviously it's been targeted on a synagogue.
So you were looking for three suspects in this case. What kind of potential charges they may be facing?
The charges in relation to this are obviously, as already been discussed, it's a mischief charge with an act of criminal damage to properties, not only the synagogue but also the elementary schools. But it obviously would be an aggravating factor with the symbols on the synagogue.
I believe this synagogue was hit a few years ago, I believe. How does that help you, or how do you use that in your investigation of suspects? The fact that this particular synagogue was hit before.
That's speculation to determine whether previous things are connected or anything, that will, be something that we look at in the course of the investigation. In terms of the previous question about what kind of charges that potentially could be laid in this, there is a hate crimes charge under the criminal code specifically dealing with mischief in relation to vandalism on religious property.
I'm sorry, I know this follows that question, I'm not really trying to connect it to that question directly here, but in the past in this city and in other cities around the country, we've sometimes seen a bit of an ebb and flow of organized hate groups, I guess, for lack of a better term. Is it, not to diminish potentially the culprits in this or what their role is, but I mean, does this look like something that may have been at all kind of a coordinated, or people were motivated by these things, or is this a bunch of kids being this offensive little, just being offensive idiots?
I think it's too early to tell at the moment, but it's not unusual for areas to be targeted with graffiti, but it is unusual for this type of graffiti to appear on a religious establishment.
So have you seen a rise at all lately in any kind of organized groups, or?
No, in answer to your question. Organised graffiti, no. But general graffiti in the area that I serve, that I patrol, there has been a slight increase in general graffiti, daubed over buildings and road furniture.
Great.